All right, well, I think it's about time, Lindsay.
We're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. We are so excited that you're all here and able to join us today. I'm coming to you from our museum.
Yeah, we are live from the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco, California. Like Lindsay said, we're really excited. My name is Jackie.
Yeah, and so what we're going to do today is we're going to be doing some explorations about science, and in particular spooktacular science. Now we have friends joining us on YouTube, we have some friends joining us on Zoom, and I just want to point out that if you ever need to ask a question, there's a Q&A in Mentimeter that you can put questions in through. The way we're doing this today, because we have about 2,000 friends joining us, is you'll only see Jackie and I's faces.
Yeah, so it might look a little bit different than your normal classroom, but we still would like you to follow along and do some science with us today.
Yeah.
So Lindsay, I know we had that Mentimeter and we were asking what was the spookiest and what was most interesting to study. Can we see some of the results?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at it. So what I can tell is it looks like guts are kind of one of the more spooky things that people think of, but it looks like bugs and bones aren't super far behind.
Oh, I wonder if there's a difference between what's spookier and what's more interesting to study.
That's a really good question. So let's go ahead and see what pops up next. All right, hold on just a moment and we'll bring up that next one. Ah, interesting.
All right, looks like bones is ahead, but just by a little bit.
Right. Yeah, so it seems like there's a lot of different ways to really be thinking about this, and we're still getting in some different results and things. And then we have this kind of question of what do you think this room is used for? So we have a lot of things that are coming up. We had a picture of one of the rooms here at the Academy. So some people say, you know, it's used for bones or for freezing things or doing art, studying, making stuff.
Researching.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we actually do a lot of that here at the California Academy of Sciences. And you can actually see a picture of our museum right here. And we have lots of coworkers that live or work here at the Academy, just like you, Lindsay. You're a wonderful coworker. Thank you. But we also have some other coworkers that are really dear to my heart.
Yes, these are some of my favorite coworkers. So since we like to explore nature all around the world, some of our coworkers are plants and animals from all around the world, and they help us understand what plants and animals need and how we can help them survive. And some of our friends, like some of our, like for example, our white alligator Claude, he came to us because he wasn't surviving well in the wild, and so we help him survive really well here. Now,
yes. So this is what we call our living collection, living plants and animals. But we also have some other types of collections, like the ones behind you and the ones behind me.
Right. Yeah, so the ones behind you and behind me, they are part of a much larger collection of things that are here at the museum. And in fact, when we count the Academy collections, it's over 20 million things.
Whoa, that's a lot.
Jackie, are you able to go to the next slide? Oh, there we go.
I'm having some issues. Can you go ahead and take over, Lindsay?
Absolutely. So when we were talking about all of our collections, we want to take care of them and we want to do a lot of really great things with them. One of the things that we do is we're talking about our coworkers, and what I thought would be really interesting is to talk with one of our coworkers and hear from her just about some of the things that she does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to my buddy Mo, and Mo is one of our what we call a collections manager. It's a job that she's going to describe for us right now.
There, I'm Mo Flannery. I'm the collections manager in the Department of Ornithology and Mammalogy here at the California Academy of Sciences. I'm actually something like a librarian, but instead of taking care of books, I take care of specimens. In ornithology and mammalogy here at CAS, we have over 100,000 bird specimens, 30,000 mammal specimens, and 11,000 eggs and nests. And researchers from all over the world can come to the collection to use those specimens, just like you would go to a library to read a book.
So I think it's really interesting. So when I was younger and I would go to museums, I just thought it was everything that I saw, like the things behind me on the shelf. But it turns out that there's a whole other slew of things, and we have kind of this giant library, and Mo gets to oversee our library that's specifically about bones and birds and mammals. So I think that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I actually never thought of a museum as a library before.
Right, right. Yeah, so it's interesting to kind of think about those different things. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start to answer this question that I find really interesting. But the question is, you know, how do bones get into our museum?
That's a really good question. So let's go ahead and think about that for just a little bit. How do you think bones get into our museum?
So what we're going to do in this whole series, this is our first of 3 programs, is we're going to be looking at the bones, bugs, and guts in our museum and how they interact and how they all help us understand the world around us. We're going to start with this idea of bones, and we're going to trace our path today of how a bone gets into a museum so that we can then figure out how do we do science with these bones. Now, we have a whole network of people all around the world who study things, and sometimes they send stuff to us. So this map of the world, everywhere you see a yellow, orange, or red dot, that's where there are people who have sent us either pictures or things they found in nature and things that they kind of want to understand or helps find interesting.
Yeah, the really cool part, Lindsay, about this is that it's not just scientists, it's people like you and me and some of our viewers like today that go out and explore nature. In fact, I heard a story about some people who went on a hike pretty close to us.
Oh, yes, Mo was telling me about this. It's this place called Villa Creek. It's kind of near San Luis Obispo, which is south of us, and it's on the ocean. And there were these hikers, and they found something at the bottom of one of the cliffs. And the way they found it is they saw all these birds kind of flying around and flocking. And then they started to smell something. And so when they got closer, they started to see this kind of dead animal, something that's called a carcass. And you're like, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that does look really interesting. So what did they actually do once they found that carcass?
Well, it's interesting because these hikers happen to know that we at the Academy like to understand the life and death of marine mammals and of birds and land mammals. And by doing that and understanding how things lived and how they died, we can help all the ecosystems around us survive. So what happened is they called us up. Mo thought it would be really interesting to go and get the animal. And so a team went out and they collected this dead animal and they brought it back to what's called the loading dock of our museum. It's kind of behind the scenes. And there's a special room that they bring dead animals to. And that room is special because it's not connected to the rest of the building. It's called the lab.
That kind of looks familiar, like the picture that we saw earlier in our time together.
Yes, so the prep lab is one of the places where bones get cleaned. And they get cleaned so that when they come into our museum, science can be done on them and that they can become part of our collection. Because when we bring dead animals back, we want to make sure they're clean so the bugs that it might be on them aren't going to get in and eat some of our other important things like the nests and feathers and things like that we also want to do science with.
Okay, well, I'd actually like to pause here for a second and learn a little bit more of what everybody thinks happens to clean a carcass and get it nice and clean like the ones behind you and I.
Yeah, that's a great question. So go ahead. We have a bit.ly, and the bit.ly will take us to another Mentimeter where we can start to just gather some ideas. How would you clean a carcass so that we can put it into our collections? What do you think? And what you can do is you can go to our bit.ly/emain1, and that will help us gather some of your ideas. And let's go ahead and we'll look at some of the ideas coming in right now. So once again, there's you can type in that link next to where it says vote. You can see some of the ideas that are popping up right now.
And for those who can't find the link, it's bit.ly ly/EMAIN1.
All right, so Jackie, I see people are mentioning water, alcohol, bleach, bugs, acid. These are really interesting ideas. Thank you all for sharing some of your thoughts in here.
Yeah, some great ideas. Now, some of these words remind me. I remember hearing Mo talk about certain things that we have to do, but I can't quite remember them in order. I know that we have to whiten the bones because they look like this. So we have to do something to whiten bones. We have to have bugs eat the flesh off of the skulls. I also remember we need to dry out the skulls with like the carcass to make it like jerky. And I also remember that we need to freeze them.
Yeah, super interesting, right? So these are all the things, some of the things that go into getting bones into our collection. So I want everyone to think to themselves right now, what do you think this order would be? If you were to put an order, would it be C, A, B, D? Would it be D, A, B, C? Which order would you put these things in? So just think to yourself, and you can jot it down on your piece of paper if you like. All right, so scientists, when they make these guesses, kind of like you're doing right now, they're usually using a little bit of logic, like thinking, well, I think it's this because of that, etc. Sometimes scientists are wrong, and that's okay. That's great. We learn just as much from being wrong as we do from being right. And in fact, we sometimes learn more from being wrong than from being right. So I went to ask Mo, Jackie, you kind of have this memory, but let's just hear from Mo about what she says about what happens.
So most specimens get into our collection through salvage. And that means that if somebody's walking on the beach, they see a dead marine mammal, or they see a dead bird or a dead otter lying on the beach, they'll call us, and we go out and we collect data on the specimen. So we collect how long they are, what species it is, whether it's male or female, how old it is. And then often we will collect the skull or sometimes the whole skeleton of the specimen to add to our research collection for scientists to use. And we have to prepare those specimens here in the laboratory at the California Academy of Sciences, which is a really stinky job.
Okay, so
there we go.
All right, so it's kind of a stinky job, like she mentioned. And then what it turns out to be is that we are, sorry, hold on, navigating back. One of the things that she mentions a little bit later on is that they first have to dry something out like jerky. They then have to invite the bugs to eat the flesh. Then they have to whiten the bones with hydrogen peroxide. And then they freeze them to make sure all of the bugs are off and they're safe to go into our collections.
All right. Thanks for helping me out with that one.
Yeah.
I would actually like to kind of watch this happen. Specifically, I'd love to see the bugs eating that flesh. And so to do this, we need to go to the academy late at night because these specific bugs called domestic beetles, they love it and eat during the nighttime.
All right, so let's check this out. I'm going to put together a time-lapse video for you all. So it's over the course of 4 days. And what I want you to think about is, what do we see happening to the skull? How are the beetles really helping prepare the skull for the collections? Where do they like to go on the skull? All these different things, because this is the skull that was collected at that beach. And so we're going to kind of trace its path.
Oh, Lindsay, I'm noticing that they're kind of towards the front, kind of like where the eyeballs were.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I can see the skull looking a little bit wider.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and then by the end, it's a pretty clean looking skull.
Yeah, but they did a really good job.
Yeah. Yeah, so then there's that bleaching process and the freezing process, and then it gets into our collection, and that's when scientists get to do science.
Cool. Well, I know one of our researchers told me that one thing that they do when they first get the skull and it's nice and clean is they look really closely at the skull. And they use a certain tool called a sketch.
Yeah. Yeah, and Rich, this is Rich right here. He's one of my scientist buddies. He's been a scientist for over 30 years, and he still sketches everything because he said that it really helps him to notice details that he might not notice otherwise. And that's how he starts to determine different maybe adaptations that an animal has, how they might survive, different things to look at.
Well, because I knew scientific sketching was going to be important, I did a sketch that I think is scientific, and I sent it to you. Can you take a look at it, see what you think?
Yeah. So let's check this out. So it looks like a leaf.
Yeah, it is. Can you tell what type of leaf it is?
You know, it kind of reminds me of a leaf I've seen like on some flowers and stuff, but I'm not really sure. Maybe, you know, Rich was saying that oftentimes when he gets sketches, he likes to compare them to other things in the collection. So let's see, if we compare them to a picture of our leaves in our collection, we can tell it's a leaf, but I can't really tell what makes this leaf special and unique.
Okay, so for a scientific sketch, we need to have a little bit more details to be able to make sure that somebody who's looking at it can actually figure out what it is.
Right. So he was telling me there's kind of 3 key things that really help make something a scientific sketch. One is that it's accurate, where you're really first just looking super closely at something. The second thing is that you draw it big, so you can really get a lot of the details, and you can write notes, and you can look at the very specific little parts that might not be possible if you were just kind of sketching something really small.
All right, well, I would love for us to kind of use our mystery skull and start and practice a scientific sketch.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to switch to my other camera in just a moment, but this is the skull that was used by that was just cleaned by Mo and her team, and it's been bleached and it's been frozen and it's ready to go. So we're going to use this as an example. And Mo knew we were going to be talking with you all today, so she refrained. She didn't tell me what this was. What we're hoping to do is to collect enough details that we can begin to piece together, what was this animal? How did it live and die? All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to share my camera with you all. Hold on just a second. Just remember, I'm going to do it differently right now. Okay. Okay. So, all right, let me swap over here. So what you can see is you can see my camera, and I have the skull that we can take a look at. And then we also have some tips for how to make a scientific sketch. So what we're going to do is we are going to be using this and really kind of looking at these different aspects. So right now, I'm just going to choose, we're going to do one side of it. I'm going to grab my pencil. And the first step is looking closely, which we've kind of been doing. The second step that we can do is we can begin to pick out different shapes that we see. So when I look at this skull, I start to see there's kind of like a rectangle boxy shape up here. I can sketch that. You can also start to see that there are some, like a semicircle here, and there's kind of like a rainbow arch thing right here. So get your pencil and paper, and I want you to practice sketching along with me, because sketching is a skill, especially scientific sketching. So we're going to start this together because we're going to keep coming back to this in the different sessions. All right, so I have my paper. I'm going to start to draw kind of those shapes that I was seeing. And I don't need to worry about making this the most pretty thing just yet. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to really just begin to start to capture some of these details. So as we're doing it, we can also add notes and different things into our drawings as we go. Some scientific sketches have more written notes, and some have more drawn parts. And sometimes it just depends on the scientist who's doing them. So okay, so let's just take a look really quick. So I've started to kind of put these things together. And then as I do that, after I find some of those shapes that I've seen, I'm going to start to add some more simple lines. So for me, I'm going to kind of look at some of these simple lines and kind of see, you know, how they go. And sometimes what I do is I kind of start out by drawing a little bit lighter, and then I can go back and add more details later. Now, right now, one of the things I'm really interested in is like the teeth, but I'm not really quite getting them captured the way that I want to. It's kind of a little bit challenging. So what I'm going to do, as you can see kind of on my sketch that I've started to put them on there, but I'm going to start to add details. So I can, for example, count. So I can see 1, 2, 3 of these kind of teeth back here. And on the bottom, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 behind these big kind of canine looking teeth. So I can start to add my notes in there about that. So I can say, for example, 3 teeth on top behind the canine, or that big pointy tooth. And I can add in my notes about those bottom teeth. And one of the other things I can do is I can start to add things, like I just have a pencil right now, but one of the things that I'm noticing is there's this coloration on the teeth right here that I find kind of interesting. So I might be able to just even add a question such as, why are the teeth colored? Because I was surprised by that, because Mo said she had bleached it. So I'm just super interested.
Yeah, I didn't notice that until you actually pointed it out, Lindsay, that it looks a little bit like a color, like maybe kind of brown or purplish.
Right. And so anyhow, I can begin to kind of add to this, and then eventually I can add, you know, some shading and some different things in here, and I can add labels of the things that I can identify. One of the things I'm noticing is it kind of looks like there's like this really big square nose right here. And I'm curious, like maybe this animal smelled well because it has such a big nose.
Hey, Lindsay, can we take a look at your sketch real quick?
Yeah.
Oh.
And again, this is just like, you know, this is my quick sketch right now. but I actually like to spend quite a bit of time on doing my sketches. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to take some pictures and I'm going to post them online for everybody later, so you can get better pictures than what I'm showing you right here. So you can begin to kind of look at this skull a little bit more too.
Oh, awesome. So even though we got our head start and we got some instructions of how to do a scientific sketch, we can totally add on to this sketch a little bit later. That's great.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll also be able to find some new and exciting details that maybe we didn't find today, and start to ask some questions about this, because I'm really curious about that color. I'm also curious what this animal is. So I'm getting excited for our next session.
Yeah. So in our next session, after we've made some more observations of the skull, we're going to start to piece together, what did this animal eat? How do we think it lived or survived? What were the senses that kind of worked with it? And we're going to begin to piece those things together.
All right, cool. Well, to be able to get to our next session, we want to encourage everybody to go to our student website. And we are going to be placing a link in the box, as well as you can find it online. Maybe you visited our student site already. And we have some activities for you all to explore. So on that website, you can see that there's lots of different activities, maybe some of the activities that you did before our webinar series. But if you scroll all the way down, we have a couple of other options, and you can choose one of these options, or you can do all of them. You can write some pretty creative stories. Also, you can go out and explore nature around you, or you can continue doing a scientific sketch about our mystery animal, or even maybe some animals around you.
So that's something to do before we meet together next time. We also have a Padlet on the student web page, so you can add pictures of your sketches or add your thoughts and different things there. We're super excited. And in addition to that, we also really want to know a little bit more about what you're curious about and what your questions are. So what we're going to do is we are going to put up the Mentimeter again, and you can tell us about your experience today. So it's going to be that same bit.ly link, and you can weigh in on the different aspects of that.
And as a reminder, that link is bit.ly/EMAIN1.
So bit.ly/EMAIN1.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We had a wonderful time, and I look forward to our next exploration for next week.
And we look forward to hearing your questions. And we hope you have a really nice time, and we hope you have an opportunity to see some nature or get outside.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.